the time being, I'll just read.
Hi everyone, welcome. We'll get started in just a minute. As you're coming in, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. You can tell us where you're coming from. And if you happen to be an educator, a teacher, a scout leader, a professor, whatever form of educator, feel free to react using the Zoom and put a little heart just so we can see who we're with. Or you can write it in the chat as well. Hello from Georgia. Hi, Tamar. Welcome. Pakistan, welcome. Armenia, welcome. Cyprus. Oh, we already have such an international group. That's fab. Hello, hello. Greece, very nice. Estonia. Super. We'll just give it another minute and wait for a few more people to join. Thank you, Irina, for clarifying that GR is Greece. I did hesitate for a second. I know that. Welcome.
I thought so.
Okay. Yeah, you saw my face. You're like, she doesn't know. Fantastic. Okay, Katya, another one from Greece. Welcome.
Like you say, let us know if you're a teacher. If you are a teacher, what age group you teach as well. Be nice to know the spread.
I think we can get started. So thank you for everyone who's here. My name is Riza and I work for the Foundation for Environmental Education. And I'm here today with my colleague Lee and Raquel, who will be handling the chat. You'll see her name there. And we have two great speakers. So this is the second of our two-part workshops on bioeconomy education as part of the work that we're doing with the BioBeo project and also FEE's Learning About Ecosystems and Forest program. So I'm going to start with just a little introduction. So this workshop, we're actually going to be talking about how to engage your students and their parents in bioeconomy education, because we'll do a little recap of the first section before, but just a little housekeeping before we begin. Please be mindful of your mic to avoid interruptions, and we'll be recording. So if you don't want to have your recording seen, you can shut your video off. But other than that, welcome. It's really nice to have you all here. And there will be some moments for brainstorming together and feedback and questions. So as we go along, if you do have questions, feel free to put those into the chat as well. And keep introducing yourselves as you log in. It's always nice to see where everyone's coming from. So, little recap what we're going to do. We're going to talk about some barriers and advantages of bioeconomy education that were raised last time. And then we have two speakers, Emmanuel Bertolani, who will be speaking about the missing link. And he's from Parents International. And then we have Sam Steer from the Center for Learning with Nature, and who'll be talking about integrating nature into formal education. And then we'll have a little group brainstorming at the end with an online tool. And hopefully that will be a good place to get started with bioeconomy education. So just to recap the first workshop, which was about a month ago, I'm sure some of you were there. We talked about what is bioeconomy education. And from the participants, we identified what could some advantages be to bioeconomy education. We had some really nice ideas. You can see them here, so that there would be students would have more awareness of the impact that they have in daily life. It could be more innovative and free to teach. There's hands-on projects. It could be more engaging, could be a holistic approach, and could bring some diversity to the classroom and the curriculum. So we had a lot of nice advantages of bioeconomy education. I think the general feeling was quite curious and excited to dive into bioeconomy education. But we also saw a few barriers. So from the participants, many of whom were teachers, we heard that there were some challenges with funding and support, resources, teachers' capacity and understanding of the topic, and as well the national curriculum and a lack of time. So we've kind of looked at that feedback from all the participants and categorized them into these 3 bullet points. And we hope that through the presentations today, we'll give you some ideas and tools that can help you tackle these barriers so that you feel a bit more ready to do bioeconomy education and bring that into your classrooms. So before we do that, just another little point of connection for all of us. If you are a teacher, or maybe if you're not, you can still tell us what you're interested in. But if you are a teacher, what subject areas are you teaching? Take a minute and you can write that into the chat. If you have multiple subject areas, write that down. We know that's the case for a lot of primary teachers. And as Lee previously mentioned, if you want to write what age group you're teaching, then you can also, that would also be helpful. All right, we have English teachers, English and Japanese, preschool, so a little bit of everything probably. Service and sustainability, that sounds fantastic. All right, any other teachers teaching different subjects, used to teach? Okay, thank you, Lee, English teacher. Independent living skills, cool. Special teacher, okay, 15-year-olds, environmental education. Do we have any music teachers? Any art teachers in here? I'm surprised we don't have like specific biology teachers. Maybe they're already doing bioeconomy education, or they think they are. All right. Natural sciences. All right, there we go. Biology and ecology. Thank you. Super. English teacher. A lot of language teachers. Thank you for sharing, everyone. Feel free to keep adding those into the chat as we go along. And we'll circle back to this after the presentations. We'll kind of do some brainstorming around these different subject areas and bioeconomy education. With that, I'm going to introduce our speakers. I already briefly did, but we have Emmanuel and Sam who are going to talk to us about bioeconomy education and some tools and strategies from 2 different angles. So with that, I think, Manu, you are up.
Teresa, it's a great pleasure to meet you all. Let me apologize in advance. Apparently, the weather has had the best of me. There's a lot of pollen in the air where I am now, so my voice sounds noticeably lower than it normally would be, but I'll do my best, and I appreciate your patience. So, couple of words about me. My name is Manu, and I work as currently as the communication, as the Director of Communication for Parents International. I do, however, have a long experience as a teacher, primarily as an English and Japanese teacher. So I also happen to have a pretty large family by Italian standards, and so I can tell you that I got to see both perspectives: the perspective of the teacher who is in the class and needs to do his best, in my case, to involve or engage the parents. We'll talk about the difference a little bit. And also as a parent, in my case, especially because we've got pretty large difference between my children. We get to see the differences in between systems, for example, in primary school versus middle school or high school. But there seems to be a noticeable gap, at least in my own brief experience in Italy, in the ability of teachers to reach out to parents in a way that is not the standard. I'll send you an email or a message and I'm done. So we'll cover why this is important from the strategic point of view. Because if we are specifically interested in the instance of this workshop in bioeconomy, but this is a valid principle for any teachers of any subject. However, it is specifically important for bioeconomy because unlike other subjects like history, for example, or math or language, who are established as, if I may, proper subjects, bioeconomy, although it is a very much necessary, it's a very necessary subject nowadays, it is maybe in some cases considered not on the same level of importance as the other ones. And so we have to get out there and reach out to parents and convince them that yes, of course, the Napoleonic Wars are important, equations are important, but we also live in a world that needs to be taken care of in a way that the previous generations didn't really manage. And so we need to start acting fast. And the best way to do is start working with children and raise awareness of things like bioeconomy in the younger generations. So if I may have the first slide, please. The first thing that, well, this is the cover of the missing link. The missing link would be in the context of Project BioBeo. It is the connection between the theory of bioeconomy and the actual lesson plans that were developed over the course of the project. So you can consider this as a methodological, very practical tool you can use and draw inspiration when you set up your own BioBeo project or use BioBeo lesson plans. And more generally, there's a specific chapter dedicated to parental engagement. Those are very valid tips, as I said before, not just for BioBeo or not just for bioeconomy, but for parental engagement in general. So it's beneficial for any subject, right? The next one, please. The first thing we'd like to point out is that there is a legal responsibility from the point of view of both teachers and parents to give children the best education, the education that is best for them. And that legal responsibility stems from the UN Convention on the Right of the Child, which states specifically that every child has a right to the education that is best for him or her. So we might disagree on what is best for him or her. We might disagree based on culture, based on many variants, but the fact that we live in an environment that needs to be protected, nurtured, understood, known, taken care of, it's really not something that's up for discussion. It's in every day, right? We know that. So it is not something that can be delegated to anybody else. It is something that is part of the right of children to receive that information, the education. And so we have, as parents and teachers, a responsibility to bring this subject to children in such a way or in such ways that are, of course, age appropriate. So you don't want to sit your children and have them go through a 2-hour lecture for a PhD class. It needs to be age appropriate, but there is no reason whatsoever why activities cannot be studied or prepared or designed specifically to target a certain age group. You know, sometimes we hear things like, well, they're too young, they can't decide for themselves. Yes, they can. And in fact, research demonstrates that the greater the level of autonomy and involvement and engagement on the side of the children, the greater the learning outcome is. So the next slide, please. Something else that's crucial for this matter is that circular economy is really about community. If you think about it, you could see, if you want to use a poetic license a little bit, you could see the whole world, the whole planet as one large community. But we don't know each other, or all of us, but everybody is actually interconnected from a purely biological point of view. It's a very large community that's living at this time, at this moment. And if you scale it down, well, the basic unit of that community would be family. So whatever kind of impact you want to have on a certain community, you need to start engaging the family. And to do that, it means you need to be engaging the parents. So one thing that we as teachers need to remember is that if we want impact on children, we cannot expect to do that alone. And we shouldn't be expected to do that alone because for a variety of reasons, one of which is that, the next slide, please. The parents, research shows, until age 11, parents have the single most important impact on their children's learning. Typically, after age 12, parents come in second because the peer group becomes the prime, the most impactful, let's say, agent with regards to learning outcomes. But parents are still number two. And so what that means is that we as teachers, we're not even, we are on the podium if we are good at our job, if we do our best, if we actually strive to be good teachers, but we very rarely are number one. Typically, we're number, three. So the family, the parents will still be there, will certainly be number one, so that they are prime interlocutors up until age 11, and a very, very important one from age 12 on. So parental engagement is not something that can be written off because we don't feel like. Although I know for experience that it's difficult, and I know from experience as a father, as a member of a family, that I quite often feel pretty much disengaged from the school world because communication is happening in ways that are outdated, insufficient, not set up for actual dialogue, but just as a sort of, I told you and I've finished, I've ticked the box, I'm done. We need to get past that and into a more effective way of communication. The next one, please. So suppose you want to set up your own activity with regards to bioeconomy. What I see happening in my own experience in my country is that if we are notified as parents, we're notified. Luckily, if we get lucky beforehand, we get an email that says this will be happening, this and that, and that's it. There's no way to respond. It's like, don't reply to this email, nobody will read it. In many instances, we just don't get told that something is going to be done at school. We just find out in the end when we receive a copy of everything that the children study. So that's not the right way to go. And the reason why that is that if I'm not told what's going to happen at school, if I'm not on board, if I don't understand the value of of that particular activity, how exactly can I participate or support my child's learning? I can't, right? So if I'm lacking information, I can't support him. If I lack motivation, I can't support him, obviously. If I don't agree, or if I have not understood why this is relevant, then I can't, in all honesty, be there and say, look, we should really look into this because this is important, and here's why. So you want to start engaging parents well beforehand, not when things start, well beforehand. You want to get them on your side. You want to get them interested in the child's progress, and you want to get them there because in the end, what you need from them is support and not obstruction, which you might get if we as parents don't understand what is the doing. Instead of teaching the subjects that we sometimes expect to be there, as we said before, every parent has had a schooling experience. So we remember our own experience and what we were taught, and we assume, in most cases, that is the right way. But not necessarily so. And so, as we said before, things like bioeconomy are just about as important as many other subjects, potentially any other subject. The next one, please. So, as we said before, you want parents on your side, and to do that, you need to be very careful in crafting your message in such a way that it can be listened to. Meaning, I'll give you an example. I come from a region that is a UNESCO designated area for culinary excellence, and my region specializes in pork-based products, which isn't exactly eco-friendly, as you might well know. So if you want to come to Emilia-Romagna, which is my region, and set up your beautiful bioeconomy project about vegan food, believe me, you're gonna have trouble. Because most people would not understand, right? So especially if you set up the project, but starting by saying pork meat is bad for you, or is bad for the environment. Of course it's true. Nobody is disputing that from the medical and the environmental point of view. That's indisputable, of course. But you need to take into account that there are hundreds of years of culture concentrated in that area. And if you just show up with your data and say, this is bad, you kids, this is bad, go home and tell your family they need to stop it right now. It's not going to happen. You cannot, and you should not, this is a very important principle, you should not try to educate children against their families. That's an assured failure right there. So instead of doing that, what you can do is to work your way towards that goal in such a way that is not necessarily offensive, but in such a way that can actually be listened to, because it's not confrontational. So in our case, the approach could be, as an example, okay, this is what you have there. How could you, or how could we make this more, let's say, cost efficient, or more effective, or less resource consuming, or less polluting for the water areas. So you see, it's not lying at all. It's switching to a mode of communication that is not confrontational, but it is still pushing towards an improvement that families, or in this case, the interested people, could still see beneficial for themselves. It's absolutely critical. You don't want to act against the families. You don't want to educate your children against their families. You want them on board. And so that means you need to be really, really, really careful in setting up the environment, crafting communication, crafting a message in a way that is designed specifically for your own culture, for your own context. It takes effort and time, but it's a great return of investment. Then we touched upon two terms with regards to parents and families: involvement and engagement. Now, some people might disagree and say it's a semantic difference. In Parents International, we care very much about this because it's part of the way we work. It's part of our philosophy. So broadly speaking, you could say that there's a beautiful quote there that explains better than I can. But the fundamental idea is, if you're trying to involve your parents, or the families, you're basically looking for customers, right? As opposed to, if you try to engage them, you want partners. So you want, when you reach out and engage the family, you want the family to work together with you. It's not about offering a service, it's about setting up an enterprise together. So think about it this way, right? If they are with you, and if they're not just involved in the sense of, we told you we're going to do this, but let's do this together. What can you do with us about this? Can you teach us something? Maybe you're more competent than we are. Can you participate in a way that's conducive to better outcomes? Great. Then come to them. Be on board. Let's be with us. It's great. Right? Okay, the next one, please. So this is it's a beautiful visual. It's called the ladder of parent participation. You could say it's graded from 1 to 8. It's part of the tools that are available for the missing link. You can use this, which is accompanied by an excellent, great checklist that you can use when you set up your activity, or when you evaluate it, to see if the way you're setting up parental engagement is actually participatory, if it's actual engagement, or if it's just for show. So there are various examples there from number 1 to number 8. The first 3 would be non-participatory. You just have a look, but that's just you're ticking the boxes, but you're not actually making way for parents to be there, or families to be there. One just let me just interject there. Whenever I say parents, it's not necessarily biological ones; it's the ones that are taking care of the child, right? So it could be a cat, could be a guardian, could be a non-biological parent, which is one. It's my case, for example, and so forth. So not just the biological ones, the one that is looking after the child. Whereas as you move with the numbers across numbers 4 and 5, and then 6, 7, 8, you can see those are examples, definitions of activities that would really make your parents or your families there in the school feel that they are part of something, because it's not something that's dropped on them, but it's them being actively directly active in part of the activities. The next slide, please. Okay, so you want to have essentially, you want to keep your the parents engaged in 4 separate segments of time. So you want them engaged before the project, as we said, during the project, which means maybe you've done a great job setting things up. They're on board. They will come to school. They participate. They have something to do with the project. You also want to make sure that whatever is happening is being communicated continuously, right? And it doesn't mean every 5 minutes, just regular exchange of communication, that to let them know that things are proceeding, how they're proceeding, their participation is appreciated and noticed, and so forth. Before the end, so as the project nears its end, you want them on board to see how the project went, what the results are, if there are lessons that can be learned, if there's something that can be improved for the next iteration of the project. It's very, very precious feedback, the one that they can offer, because they see children more than you do, and they see children in an environment they don't know about, because it's their own family, and so they see reactions that you don't. So whatever they can tell you is very, very valuable. And then afterwards, after the party, after the conclusion, again, because they are your partners, if you set up things well, so they can offer additional ideas or help or insights for the next iterations, or for any successive iterations, even for different projects. The next one, please. Okay, and that would be all on my side, really. So I would encourage you to have a look at the missing link. It's totally free. It's a pretty short document. It's under 60 pages with a very simple layout. So it's very easy to navigate, and you will find that it's been specifically designed to be practical, immediate, and pretty simple to use. So I would strongly recommend you to have a look, especially if you're interested in parental engagement. There's a dedicated section there, lots of ideas, not a huge number of tools, but the ones that would be very helpful to have, with instructions how to use them. And then I can't guarantee anything, but our experience shows that parental engagement makes a gigantic difference. So I would recommend studying it and then trying it out.
Super. Thank you very much for that, Manu. I think my main takeaway here, and thinking about the barriers that other participants in the past raised, is that when we're thinking about the lack of knowledge that teachers might have, or lack of confidence, or lack of support, I think starting with parental engagement and child participation, and getting that side of things involved, can really help bioeconomy education and projects, like you mentioned, get more smoothly into the classroom. So yeah, as Manu said, I think check out the missing link. It's a great guide before you even have to do anything, just to kind of think about how you want to introduce bioeconomy education. So I am mindful of time. If there are questions in the chat, maybe Manu can go through and look at those. But I think we will have to skip ahead so that we have time for Sam and some brainstorming at the end. But thank you very much, Manu. And Sam, you are up, and I will let you share your screen.
Okay. I trust you can see the slide, you can see me, and you can hear me. Nice to see everybody and have you all here. It's a really wonderful thing to just to get to meet all these teachers from around the planet, everyone engaged in educating the next generation. I've worked in education for a long time as a teacher and as a director of a nonprofit that's focused on education, particularly at looking at how we can enhance and enrich education by bringing nature into the classroom. And by that, I don't necessarily mean bringing in animals and aquarium and plants, although that's all great. I mean actually integrating nature into how we teach. And so I'll be talking a little bit about that today, and it'll be related to the bioeconomy and perhaps a little broader with applications to lots of different subjects, and hopefully introduce some ways to bring bioeconomy into the subjects you already teach. I'm very mindful of this, that the first job in doing any kind of sustainability education means that we have to make sure our students care enough to pursue it. And we often forget this step. We often think if we just give them the information, everything else will be fine. But I don't think that's the case. I think any of us that have worked with kids and just, as a person, we realize that we have this whole world of motivations and psychology that we need to think about. This is a wonderful quote that puts all of this so succinctly. This is a famous Polynesian navigator that some of you may have heard of. And that's sort of it in a nutshell, that we have to first care about sustainability. We have to care about the planet. We have to really love the planet before we'll really get down to the business of figuring out how to take care of it. The research about how kids and people care about nature is very clear. The more we interact with nature, the more we tend to care about it. And the less we interact with nature, the more apathetic we become. So this connection that we can have to the natural world it's really a human capacity. It's not a given. It's something that has to be fostered and nurtured and developed. Otherwise, it just doesn't really play a big role in a person's life, at least not consciously. And so this is a very important idea for us to have in mind as we think about the role of nature in education. There has been a lot of work, very noble and important work, to get kids outside interacting with nature more. And this has gone on for the last 10 or 15 or 20 years. But despite this very important work, unfortunately, we really haven't been able to turn the tide on this problem, at least at any global scale. So kids today actually spend less time outside than they have at any other time in human history. If you want to complete this sentence at the bottom of the screen, children spend less time outside than blank. Feel free to enter your ideas in the chat or even say it out loud. Anyone have any idea? And I actually can't see the chat since I'm running the slides. So if someone can shout out what they're seeing in the chat. Anyone guesses? Children spend less time outside than. Okay, yeah, go ahead, Riza. Anybody?
We have maximum security prisoners and their room.
That's actually right. That's true. It's utterly shocking, but it's true. At least this was a study done in the United Kingdom, and they found that children spend less time outside on average than prisoners. Just to just a very dramatic way of illustrating this challenge that we have. Now, meanwhile, connecting kids with nature in schools, somewhat ironically, is a massive untapped opportunity. And what this pie graph is showing you is just the amount of time that kids spend in different educational environments or potentially educational environments. So you can see that they spend an enormous amount of time in school compared to, say, summer programs or after-school programs. The vast majority of children's educational time is spent in school. And this means that just by time alone, we have a huge untapped opportunity to connect kids with nature in school. And this is sort of an ironic statement. Schools really don't seem, when you look at them, to lend themselves to connecting kids with nature. So how do we go about doing this in this environment that is sort of abstracted from the real world, as schools are often the case? The first thing that's really important to realize is that in order to do this, in order to connect kids with nature in school environments, it doesn't mean that we need to teach anything above and beyond what we already have to teach. And as we all know, we don't have any more space or time to fit anything completely new into school curricula. That's a big ask. But luckily, we don't have to in order to connect kids with nature. We can do it by simply teaching the things that we already have to teach. What changes is how, of course, we teach those subjects. And the main general idea is that we simply teach the subjects we need to teach by relating or contextualizing whatever subject it is that we're teaching in terms of engaging natural phenomena. So let me give you just a very simple, concrete example. If you're teaching math and let's say you're covering the topic of percentages or ratios or proportions, you might do it this way. And these are problems taken from real textbooks. So you could ask students to write 3/25 as a percent, or you could have a word problem like this. There are 36 biscuits in a biscuit tin. Bella eats 12 biscuits. What percentage of the biscuits did Bella eat? These are perfectly fine. They cover the topic perfectly fine. But it's a missed opportunity because we could also cover the subject of percentages this way. And what you see in this table on the top row represents proteins, specifically amino acids that the human body makes in order to create our bodies. And on the bottom row, you see the same thing, the amino acids, which are represented by those letters, or the proteins that dolphins produce. And if you have students go through a table like this and figure out the proportions of similar amino acids or proteins that humans and dolphins have, and can then create a fraction of that and then divide it out to create a percentage, what they find out is that the proteins that humans produce are the same as dolphins by about 85%, or vice versa. Dolphins produce about 85% of the exact same proteins that humans produce. So from this perspective, what students learn is that in a sense, in terms of the proteins that our bodies produce, humans are 85% dolphin, or dolphins are 85% human. We have this very close connection to other species such as dolphins. So what you see is that the kids learn how to do the percentages, they learn how to compute ratios and so forth, but they also learn something greater. They learn something about the natural world and their relationship to it. So you haven't taken up any more time to teach the subject of percentages, but we've connected kids with nature in a whole new way and used the opportunity of this subject in math to do it. I'll give you another example. This one has to do with if you're teaching chemistry or teaching about the carbon cycle, and it focuses on the production of concrete. Humans produce concrete by finding deposits of limestone in the Earth's crust. We dynamite that, we haul it off to a factory, and then we apply a lot of fossil fuels to heat that limestone in order to make it reactive to water. So you go down to the hardware store, you pick up a bag of this stuff, you put a garden hose in it, and you can fix your sidewalk or your driveway. In the process of that heating, we release a lot of greenhouse gases, about 8%, which is the most that any material that we produce creates. So cement and concrete is a big contribution to greenhouse gases, as we all know. And what's interesting is we're not the only species on the planet that actually makes this substance. So coral reefs are composed of a concrete-like substance. The stony corals create the same material, calcium carbonate or limestone, but they do it a very different way than us. What corals do is they take carbon dioxide and they actually use it to create that calcium carbonate molecule. So as coral reefs grow, they're pulling carbon dioxide out of the ocean, surrounding ocean water, out of the atmosphere in order to produce their concrete-like bodies. Now, people have studied corals, figured out how corals do this, and then come up with alternative ways for making concrete so that we actually, instead of releasing carbon dioxide to do it, we absorb carbon dioxide into the concrete-like material. And this has been done and is done commercially in various places now. Doesn't require any mining. There's no release of greenhouse gases. In fact, it's a carbon negative activity. So just like corals were able to produce this concrete by actually removing greenhouse gases from the atmosphere rather than putting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Now, what this has to do with education is that we can bring this into the classroom. So here, what you're seeing is kids are actually, they're taking carbon dioxide from car exhaust, and they're using very simple chemistry that we've learned from corals, and they're able to create the raw material for cement and concrete in the classroom. It's a very simple activity. You can even do it in your kitchen. And so what kids are learning is they're learning the chemistry, they're learning about carbon cycles, et cetera, but they're learning a lot more, right? They're learning that the answers to a lot of human challenges are right outside our windows. They're also developing their awe of nature, their capacity to solve human challenges, and they're also developing their authentic hope that a sustainable future is possible. So we're teaching them the chemistry, we're teaching them about carbon cycles and so forth, but they're learning so much more simply because we've changed how we teach these subjects. We've brought nature into the process. One last example, and this relates very directly to bioeconomy. And this example has to do with creating drones. This was called the Biodegradable Drone Project. It was done by a bunch of students who were concerned that drones are increasingly used today, and they often run out of battery power, and they drop out of the sky, and they just become litter on the ground. And so what these students wondered is if they could create a drone that was biodegradable. And so the body of this drone is created out of a mycelium or a fungi that is grown on agricultural waste. And it's very easy to do in the classroom. You can see here some images of what middle school students have grown in the classroom. And it's used commercially. Dell Computers, for example, ships their computer parts by using this styrofoam substitute that's entirely biodegradable. These students went further. They strengthened the body of the drone using cellulose that was grown from kombucha, however you pronounce it. So you've probably seen this if you've ever grown any of this yourself. But the bacteria and the yeast create a cellulose, and that was used to strengthen the body of the drone. It was further strengthened by using a protein that's actually produced by paper wasps that they use to protect their nests from water. And then the drone body was impregnated with enzymes from a fungi that speed up the biodegradation of the drone. So it's activated by moisture. The drone operates perfectly until it actually becomes garbage, and then it biodegrades. So this is a very simple idea of how you can bring subjects like bioeconomy into the things that are already taught in schools, subjects like engineering and chemistry and so forth. What the research shows is that when we bring nature into how we teach, students learn the material more effectively. Their academics improve, their cognitive capacity improves, their ability to work well with other students improves. All of these things are improved by bringing nature into how we teach. So it's not just about connecting kids with nature, as important as that is. It's also about improving their academic success in schools. And these are the parameters that the parents care about, that the administrators care about, that society cares about. So from this perspective as well, it's a very strong proposition. Just real quickly, a few resources that are free and available to anyone that's interested. You can go to this website. You can download. This is a curriculum that teaches math by bringing nature in. It's designed for 7th graders, which is about 12 and 13-year-olds. This is an engineering curriculum designed for upper primary students, so 10, 11, 12-year-old students. It's a 3-week unit that teaches engineering by looking at the natural world and what we can learn from it. This is a similar type of subject that's taught in a similar style, but it's a semester-long unit for middle and secondary students. And then this is just more of a narrative treatment about teaching engineering through a nature-inspired approach. There's some other resources on the website as well. And my nonprofit develops a lot of curricula in this manner. I'll just end with this. Really and truthfully, in education, it's the journey that is most important. And that's where the opportunity lies. So we often focus on, what competencies the students are able to master and so forth. But during all of that, we have a massive opportunity to improve these kids' lives and improve how they are citizens in our very fragile planetary environment for the rest of their lives. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much. It's great to be with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. That was really, really cool to see all those different examples. With that, we're gonna shift it over to all of you, lovely participants, to start thinking a little bit about what you might want or be able to do in your classrooms to bring bioeconomy to your students. So if you'd like to put into the chat or raise your hand and unmute yourself and share some ideas, we would love to hear whether you are a math or a science teacher or maybe a language teacher, if you have any thoughts or reflections about how you want or could do bioeconomy education. I'll also give you like a few seconds to think about this question before answering.
I think, Risa, just to add, we had some really good STEAM examples there. I've just put in the chat. If you have any from music, art, history, vocational subject areas, then please also do share in there, because those, the more subject areas where bioeconomy is being delivered, the more it will stay on a teacher's radar. It's not something additional to be taught, it's just something that can sit alongside the current curriculum. So if you are music, art, history, voc, maybe something that's outside of that STEAM sector, please just put your ideas that you might have in here as well. Thank you.
All right, are we get any thoughts from participants?
To our speakers, do you have any examples where you've seen as well bioeconomy maybe linked within the music or the art graphics curriculum? I'm looking at the behind you, the image. Again, there's lots of maybe art that we can link on there, or even AI uses.
I've been working on some ones that connect language arts and music to the natural world. For example, really what I find to be a fascinating fact is, Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, the dun 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 dun, very famous, maybe one of the most famous melodies in the world. Beethoven got that idea apparently while walking in a park in Austria and hearing a bird called the yellowhammer bird, which is found throughout Europe. And if you look at a spectrogram of the Yellowhammer song, and you put that next to Beethoven's famous melody, you can see it. And so it's just a little, connection to nature and how it inspires us in things like music and so forth, that I think surprisingly most people aren't even aware of.
Okay, that's such a cool example. We have a question, how bioeconomy can be taught in kindergarten. Speakers, Lee. I know we have some BioBeo resources and lesson plans that were specifically created for kindergarten aged children. So we can share those as well. And I think it goes back to what Sam was saying about connecting with nature and caring about nature and just getting into nature. I think that's always a good starting point, especially for the younger years. Bioeconomy can sound a little intimidating, I would say, for that age group.
Maybe sparking the creativity at that age, just getting outside. Sam, you mentioned the fact there about the outside. I was actually part of the group that was part of that survey about the UK young people spend more time or less time outside than high security prisoners. And we spoke to a lot of teachers at the time. And what we also found that a lot of the teachers of those young people, they weren't very active in going outside themselves either when they were younger. For all sorts of reasons, we found that it was the weather, lack of appropriate tools or resources or clothing that they thought they had. And also we had quite a few people that were putting phobias of creatures and insects and things outside. So that was quite interesting as well, to see some of the reasons were coming from the teachers not wanting, not the young people not wanting to go outside.
That's a great point that we often forget.
Yeah.
And what I didn't mention is that when you teach in these different ways, I think one thing that happens that's very important is that teachers tend to get more excited about what they're teaching. And the students' engagement, of course, really tracks along with how the teachers seem to feel about what they're teaching. So when the teachers are engaged, the students become more engaged. And I think bringing nature into the classroom in these ways can really help teachers get more excited about their jobs.
Agreed.
To offer a quick point with regards to engaging children, kindergarten or preschool, in anything specifically about nature, but not just necessarily. Part of what I've done professionally was interpreting for the Reggio approach study groups in Reggio Emilia, which you might have heard of, that they're very much focused on using nature as the locus for learning and education. And typically what they do is they would ask questions to children, and then they would see what happens, in the sense that they always make a difference between what you plan and what you actually do, because if it's all about the planning, then you get what you plan for. But if you ask the questions and see what happens, then it's them doing that actually does the learning. So you can set up the activity in many different ways, but the fundamental idea would be, if you're getting exactly the responses you were expected, you're asking the wrong questions, which means there is no actual activity on the side of the children. There's not much discovery. If there's nothing unexpected happening at that age with that creativity and that imagination, it means there's too much oversight from you, as opposed to unleashing the imagination and creativity, which at that age is just blooming. And if it's set up properly, they just take leaves and make wonders out of them, graphically, narratively. So you can, of course, you can't expect to teach them as you would, high school students, but if you give them space and opportunity, it's possible.
And do you think as well with educators, sometimes we're so stuck in our box? I was a teacher for 16 years. We're so stuck in our box of what we think we should get. Actually, it's okay sometimes when the young people come to us and they've come up with something completely crazy or something that doesn't fit what we're expected. It's okay to acknowledge that. And if we don't know the name of the plant that they're found or the animal that they're looking at, that's fine. We can learn along. And do you think that's something that comes with confidence and experience, Manuel? Do you think that's something over time that you develop?
Certainly, but I would say, especially if it's with the younger learners, so to speak, I have found that the best way for me to learn something is when I'm forced to teach it. So just to give you a very quick example, I found myself in a situation when I had to explain bradycardia to my wife, who is from Japan. And although I speak the language, I had no idea what the specific term is. I learned it because I had to. I never forgot it for obvious reasons. So when you have to do something that's uncomfortable for you, most likely it's going to be out of your comfort zone as a teacher, but it's a spectacular opportunity for you because the fact you have to get out of your your little castle, if you want, your comfort zone, and get out there, learn something in a way that can be understandable by someone else. That's great. So I understand the chill of having to to come to grips with the fact you don't know everything about the topic, but that's okay, because especially nowadays, you as a teacher, you're not supposed to be the source of information, because computers beat us every single time. If you play the game, we're the ones that teach people how to put things together, and computers can't do that. We do. So that's something teachers might want to consider, I think.
Super. I like that point. I think with that, thank you for all your input. And I think we'll just go to the last little section of what we can do next, where we go from here. Maybe, there we go. Just to recap that there are resources available. So if you are a kindergartner teacher or a language teacher and you want to do bioeconomy education, as we've heard, we have the missing link. I think it's a really great place to start when you're starting to think about how you want to bring this into your classroom, maybe next school year, how you want to get children to participate, parents to participate, and kind of go for a whole school approach in introducing a new environmental topic. We also have resources on our LEAF website, some of those from the BioBeo project, and other outdoor education materials are also available there for different age groups and different themes. Then if you go to BioBeo, the project website, there's a lot of lesson plans coming out, games, videos, virtual reality activities, comics, podcasts, songs, like there's all types of different ways to approach bioeconomy for different age groups, just to give like a little bit of an interest, a little bit of a spark, and kind of get the ball rolling. So I would recommend checking that out. And then if you think you are ready and you want to really just get your hands dirty and do bioeconomy, then I'll invite you to join the 2025 Global Action Days. It's an annual campaign that we run here at FEE, and it's open to everyone around the world, no matter your age, where you live, everyone can join. And it's from the 22nd of April to the 6th of May this year. You can register using the QR code there, or the link will be in the chat. And actually, there are 5 activities, and the third activity is all about exploring what does bioeconomy mean for different people from different generations. So it's a little bit of an intergenerational activity where we're asking young people to connect with elders in their community and explore activities and topics like agriculture and traditional practices around food and natural resources, and what bioeconomy has looked like over the years, because it's not actually a new concept. It's existed for centuries, arguably. So those are kind of 3 action points that you are welcome to take after this webinar, this workshop. And with that, just a really big thank you all for joining. I hope this was helpful. There will be a recording available. And with that, good luck and have fun with bioeconomy. Thank you all so much.